All right, so what does the word bouncing your audio mean in the world of audio? Well, it's pretty much the same thing as render in the world of video. You're basically taking a group of clips or a single clip and rendering it into a new clip. So there's a bunch of different reasons as to when and why you would bounce your audio. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you guys a couple different examples. So remember back in the edit tab when we cut up this song, we basically took different parts of the song, put them on two different layers, and basically rearranged it to make a new, shorter version of that song, right? Well, what if we wanted to bring all of these clips into one track so that we can affect all of these clips in one track, right? Or if we wanted to affect all of these separate clips, which are really just one clip because it's the whole song, we want it to be one clip. What if we wanted to affect all these as one clip? Well, this would be a good example of when we would want to bounce our audio into a new track. So in this case, what I can do is go up to the timeline menu here and select Bounce Mix to Track. Now, when we are choosing the option Bounce Mix to Track, it's basically going to bounce or render our entire mix over here. In this case, there's really only the music, right? We don't have any sound effects or anything else like that. But just remember, when you are using this option, Bounce Mix to Track, you can solo certain tracks so that you are not taking the other tracks into consideration when you're bouncing the audio. So when you solo certain tracks, you can basically fine tune what the final bounce or render will sound like. So if I had a bunch of other sound effects here and I just wanted to do the same thing, I just wanted to bring all of these into one clip, I would make sure to solo both of these tracks and make sure nothing else is soloed. So let's go up here to timeline. Let's select Bounce Mix to Track. And we're going to get this pop-up menu here. And it's basically going to ask us how we want to bounce our mix. So what is the mix? The mix is everything that's happening in our timeline. Well, how do we capture everything in order to bounce it? Well, we would want to record what's coming out of the bus, right? All these different tracks are being routed into bus one. Bus one is our main output. So whatever's coming out of bus one is going to be bounced. So what we could do is select new track over here. So it's basically going to bounce whatever is coming out of bus one and put it into a new track right away. That is the destination track. We can also just choose specific tracks as well if we want to bring it into one of these other tracks that are already existing here. So let's press OK and watch what happens. So very quickly, we can see the playhead has scrubbed through the timeline over here and basically rendered out what it heard as it went through the timeline. So if it heard other sound effects and stuff here too, that would also be a part of this bounced audio down here below. So let's take a listen to this. Right now we have both of these two tracks up here soloed, so we're listening to these and these only. So we can see this is the original. Now if I unsolo these and I solo this bottom one, it's the same thing. We basically rendered out all of these clips over here into a new separate render. So that's one way that bouncing can be useful. So I'm going to delete these clips up here, or you know what, let's just hide them. So let's go to our index over here. So that's A1, A2. Obviously nothing is labeled or colored right now, so it's kind of a mess. Let's close off these other ones and just focus on this one right here. Let's unsolo it, close the index. And now let's say that we wanted to apply a reverb effect to one of the hits. We wanted to cut the song off on one of the hits and still have that reverb effect apply after we've already ended the clip. So let's go to a part of the clip where that would make sense. I'm just gonna middle mouse click and drag here. So maybe right there, let's hit W. I like that hit. Now I was questioning myself, why is the music still playing? And of course, it's because we forgot to mute the other audio tracks within the index over here. So, or on the track level, we just got to make sure that we mute the original song, right? The original audio here. So the first music was sitting on A1, A2. And just because we hit it doesn't mean we've muted it. We got to remember to mute it. So let's hide the index now. Let's take a listen to this song here. Cool. So we have that hit over here. That happens right there. And you know, one dramatic effect that I see done all the time in Netflix docs and YouTube videos, all that stuff, is a reverb. You apply a reverb to the track over here, and then once you get to like a hit like this in the song, you just cut it off. The reverb will basically allow that last hit to kind of prolong and echo down. So I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So let's select this track over here. We can see it's highlighted in the mixer over here, the channel strip here. We can go over to our effects. Let's select reverb, which is right here. This is because it was one of the effects that I used recently. You're going to have to go to down here, reverb, Fairlight Effects, reverb. And we are presented with this. We could see reverb has also been applied to the track over there as well. So let's press play and just listen. So that's got a lot of reverb time there. I'm gonna bring that down. Cool, so let's take a listen and see what happens at the end here. So that sounds pretty ugly. I'm probably gonna wanna adjust this a little bit. So we can see that that sound extends past the actual clip length, right? Doesn't stop until about here. So that's kind of an issue, right? Like we have a sound that prolongs past this point, but we can't actually see it within the clip form, and we can't see the waveform for that sound. And if we were to drag this clip to another track here, what happens? We've lost that effect, right? It's not baked into the clip. That effect is applied to the track level, and it affects everything underneath the track level. So it affects all the clips. So what we could do is the exact same thing as before. We can go up to our timeline over here. We can select bounce mix to track. Same thing as before. Let's just select a new track over here. Let's press OK, and let's see what happens. So we are presented with a new track down here below, and would you look at that? The waveform extends past where the clip was before. Let's extend this waveform so we can get a better look at it. So we can see that this new bounced audio track has recorded that reverb effect that we applied on the track level. So now that effect is now technically on the clip level. It's baked into this new clip. So we could just delete that upper clip for now. Now there's one more situation I want to show you guys where bouncing your audio can be very helpful. I'm just going to delete this clip here. And let's say that we have a section of our clip where we want to do a bunch of sound design. So let's say over here, we got the dirt bike stuff. So what I would do is go to my sound library. I'd probably look for dirt bike stuff. So 4 or 5, drag this in. And I want to make sure that that reverb effect is not on this. And of course, we're going to want to move forwards in time here. So about there. Cool. Let's pretend. I'm just going to use 3 clips as an example. So there we go. There's that. And we'll do another close-up here. So just drag it in there. And obviously these levels are pretty loud. Cool. So let's pretend that we were happy with this result and we had like 5 more other clips here. What we could do is actually bounce all of these clips so that they're in one clip essentially. So, let's say we had a couple more and we were happy with how the levels of all the clips were, the levels of all the sound effects were. We felt like they were balanced, and we wanted to put all of these into one clip for various different reasons. Maybe you want to play with the panning of all of these clips at once. You wanted to basically keyframe all of these different sound effects to play with the panning in the inspector, but you wanted to treat all these clips as one clip, essentially. That's just one example of why we would want to bounce all of these audio clips. So what we could do is select the range. So we can go to the start of this clip, click 4, go to the ending of this clip here, click 5. So now we have a range. We also have a track selected, And what we could do is go to timeline, and instead of bounce mix to track, we can select bounce selected tracks to new layers. So let's hit that. Let's see what happens. And we can see we have a new layer, but oh wait, it looks like it's overwritten what we had here before. And you know what? We also forgot to select this one here. Let's just hit Command Z. Let's make sure both of these tracks are selected. So Command to select both of them there. And we also have that range. Let's go back to the menu here, bounce selected tracks to new layer. So now we can see it's bounced each one of these tracks, but it bounced them individually, right? So it took this clip in this track, it bounced it, and put it back on top of its own track. These new bounce clips didn't actually overwrite anything. So remember, we have layers that we can work with here in Fairlight. So if I press Option S, we can see these new layers. So over here, we can see the new bounce clip for this bottom section here, and we can also see the new bounce clip for this original clip here. So what is it that we should do if we wanted to bounce all three of these sound effects into just one clip? Well, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do that now. Let's delete these new bounce layers over here. And what we want to make sure we have selected is within timeline, we want to make sure that layered audio editing is turned on. If it isn't, then we're going to be overwriting when we drag clips on top of each other. So Option S to hide our layers. Let's zoom in here. Option and scroll. If we take this clip over here and we drag it over top of these other clips, we've basically applied this clip over top of those other clips. So it's basically layered it on top of them. And we can see that when we press Option S, that shows us our track layers. And if we don't have that option selected, layered audio editing, then it's going to overwrite just like it normally does in the edit tab or anywhere else. So now that we have all of our clips in one track here that we want to bounce, what we could do is head over back to that same menu, select bounce selected tracks to new layer. And right now we have 2 tracks selected, but there's nothing in the second track, so it doesn't matter. Bounce selected tracks to new layer. And you can see that this selected track, it created a new bounce track of nothing, so we can just delete that. But now we have all 3 of those clips combined, and of course nothing was overwritten. We can click Option S to show us our original sound effects down below. And if we press play over here, we can see it's only playing the top layers within all the layers, so we're no longer hearing those sound effects down below. And that's how Fairlight works. It basically, when you bounce something on a layer level, the top layer is the one that's going to be prominent. So if I go in here, if I zoom in and I turn this up like crazy, we're not hearing it, right? We're only hearing the sound of the bounce track up top. So Command Z, I'm going to undo that. And now what we can do is exactly what I was talking about before. So now that we have all those clips in one bounce clip, all together, what I can do is select this clip, but I want to make sure that I'm not dragging it down. So the clip is selected. I can go into the inspector now. Let's zoom out here. And now what we can do is play with the pan. So we can start this entire clip over here to the left, set a keyframe, go over here, move it all the way to the right. And just like that, we've applied this dynamic pan keyframing to all these clips here at once via a new bounced clip. So let's press play and just take a listen. Cool. So in my ears, I can clearly hear the sound starts more in my left ear and then moves on to the right, just like the automation that we did here with the pan. So those are a couple different situations where bouncing your audio can be very useful. This is a very powerful tool. It's similar to like nesting in the edit tab when you're working with videos. That's kind of how my mind thinks of it. And obviously nesting is a very powerful tool in video. It allows you to do a lot more, and that's the exact same way that we should think about bouncing in Fairlight. You can do a lot with this, and it's going to be a big help in a lot of situations. So definitely get familiar with how to use bouncing, and just get familiar with when you would want to bounce your entire mix versus bouncing just individual tracks. And remember, you can bounce a mix when you have a bunch of different sound effects, tons of different layers. You can bounce the entire mix and be specific with what tracks you want to bounce just by soloing those tracks. So just remember, it's like whatever you hear coming out of the program is what will be bounced. So you can solo one track and then it'll bounce that. But that's it for this lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you in the next one.